Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to be together. Thanks so much for being here.
Great, guys. Well, Trace is going to be almost joining the conversation and co-hosting with me, and I'm going to ask her a few questions as we go. The rest of the guys that you can see on the screen are all former students at different stages of their study, all the way from current bridging students all the way to qualified CAs. And I think really the idea of the session this evening is just to talk about the process of becoming a CA with Milpark and CA Connect, and just share a little bit of each person's experience. It's not a scripted webinar. I don't know what some of these guys are going to be saying. The idea of this is just really getting together, sharing stories, and giving you a sense of what it's like to study online, be part of the program, be part of the community. We're really excited for our new programs that are opening in February next year, and of course the applications are already open. The focus of this webinar is on the postgraduate programs, and we'll talk quite extensively about the PGDA, Postgraduate Diploma in Accounting, which is the final year of study before SAICA's board exam, as well as our 6-month bridging program that prepares you for the PGDA. Of course, we've also got our BCom in Accounting that leads into the postgraduate programs. We're not going to be speaking much about the BCom today. That webinar will happen early next year in January. But if you have joined and you're interested in the BCom Accounting, those applications, like the postgrad programs, are also open. And the easiest place to get information on these things is the CA Connect website, www.caconnect.co.za, and also, of course, the Milpark website, milpark.ac.za. CA Connect and Milpark really one and the same thing, so you'll see the websites linked to one another. Sometimes the CA Connect website can be a little bit easier, just because that's directed only to our CA programs, and so that can be quite a useful place to look. And the other thing I must tell you guys about is if you've got really specific questions to your case, things that you're thinking about, things that are unique to you, a great place to ask questions before you join is accounting@milpark.ac.za. I think that'll also be put in the comments for you to pick up. I think hopefully we try to keep this webinar kind of more on the general side and not tailored to individual specific circumstances. I think the idea of this is to talk about the general process of joining our online programs, what it looks like to study online, how it interacts with work and life and study, and everything that goes into becoming a CA. So I'm going to get shortly into beginning the discussion. As I said, it is quite an informal discussion. There's probably about a 10 to 20% chance that my kids run in the door behind me during the program. As I said, it's not scripted. We try and keep things discussive, and likewise for the rest of the panelists that can also happen. So please bear with us if something like that does happen. We'll roll with it. I think it's indicative of the way we like to run the Milpark CA Connect programs. I think as lecturers, as kind of the academic leads on the program, we try not to present ourselves as pictures of perfection. We don't dress in suits and ties and be completely formal. I think the idea that we want of the program is we're with you on the journey. We want to get to know you as people. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Neither of us are perfect. Life is difficult. Life happens. And those are the things we need to talk about, because I think despite all those things, the guys around me on the panel have had amazing success in their lives in the context of various CA programs. And I think we had to share stories around that. So we're going to record the session. It will be available after the session. If you've registered, please feel free to share that recording with anyone you want to. Basically, as part of being part of this session, you should receive an email after the session with a link, and you're welcome to share that with anyone you want. It's also going to be shared on our social media after the event. Last thing to point you towards is there is a text-based discussion. We've got 2 of our knowledgeable staff who are answering questions there. Just note, guys, that there are 2 ways of chatting in the text. There's almost a general text discussion where you can just post general comments, but there's also almost a separate demarcated area for specific questions. So if you want to ask a question in the chat, almost go to the extreme right of your screen, and there's almost a text box with a question mark inside it. If you want to ask a specific question, pop that question in there, and Shamiz and Mehiba will do their best to give you some answers there. But as I said, the email address is also there, accounting@milpark.ac.za. If you want to email us, we always try to get back to you guys in 24 hours, and you should get pretty speedy responses there. I think that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction. So I'm going to dive into talking to these beautiful people around me and between me. I'm not sure how I'm appearing on your screen. And I'm not going to give lengthy introductions. I think I'm also going to ask some questions to each of them, and as they talk, I think we'll get to kind of hear a bit of their stories. So, David, I am going to start with you. You fascinating story. I was reading your biography before, and you're a current student on our 6-month bridging program, and most importantly, probably about you, is you joining this webinar having written your final bridging exam today. So I think I'm going to start with saying congratulations. How does it feel to be done with exams?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think I lost my purpose. I was engrossed in all of this, and from one book to another, from one piece of legislation to another, and suddenly after my last exam, I'm like, what am I going to do tomorrow? But it's been an amazing journey, a really amazing journey. I think the one thing for me, I haven't studied in like 15 years. So coming back, I think the first thing I thought to myself is, kind of, you're going to waste your time spending 6 months in the bridging course. Why not dive straight into it? Money and all of those kind of things, cross your mind. But I think it's the best thing that I could have ever done to kind of transition myself back into the world of studies, back into current legislation, and also just finding my feet again, work, life, family, studies, figuring yourself out and getting a good program going. And Gareth, you say 6-month program. I say it's more like 3 months. This course started in, for me, it started in August, because I joined 2 weeks late. So August, September, October, 3 months, and final exams in November. A robust program, but I think the best thing for me was to say, besides the content, is like, how does this content become applicable in my work environment? And we've been able to do that, and so it's really been an amazing journey.
And David, I mean, a fascinating story. I mean, just tell us about this 15-year gap. I mean, it must feel like worlds apart from kind of studying your undergraduate. And I think, if I'm right, you were almost on a non-CA, a kind of a BCom finance undergraduate, and then kind of 15 years, and now kind of into the thick of things from a CA perspective. How did that feel?
I think it's probably not going to be fair if I don't contextualize that 15 years. Firstly, I graduated in 2008, but my first year of registration was actually in 1997. So it took me 12 years to graduate. And starting off, it was actually on the CA journey. But, life happens, and you start going from full-time studies to part-time studies. I got a management trainee opportunity with, back in the days, it was, and now I'm going to sound like I'm old, before APSA was APSA. So it was with Trust Bank at the time. And of course, you started this journey, and just about 2007, I decided, well, I need to just go and finish this course. Because of the lapse of time, of course, I couldn't go the CA route anymore. But at the time, I'd already done 3 of my 4 majors. So I'd already done auditing, tax, management accounting, tax, and financial accounting. It's only auditing that I did not complete. So I just needed to do whatever I needed to do to stand at the podium. At that time, I'm originally from Port Elizabeth. At that time, I'd also relocated to Johannesburg. So I literally, in 1 year, I was in Port Elizabeth once a month, every month for 12 months. To make sure that you attend your lectures, make sure that you write your tests. In fact, I was got exempted from lectures and able to write my tests once a month. And that's how we got to BCom Finance, right? And that was really the last time of formal studies, and then work happened. And believe it or not, in over 20 years of formal work experience, I've never once worked in a finance environment until I joined my current employer about 2 years ago now. And that's when the bug bit. And suddenly I'm in an environment with CAs, I'm suddenly in an environment with debits and credits. And I was blessed also with a great environment with colleagues that want to figure things out. And so we had a big whiteboard and tracing the debits and tracing the credits. And yeah, I was hoping to join last year already, or earlier this year. I think the Feb intake. I was wanting to join, but unfortunately not. Couldn't. I was too late for it. Almost too late for the July intake. And yeah, that's how I find myself here now.
And I suppose that's one of the benefits of the program, as you say, having almost missed the February intake. There was the July intake.
100%.
Maybe one of the things I can ask before, because I think I would also want to ask a similar question to Bronwyn, because I think she also had kind of a 15-year gap or something like that as well. But one thing just to touch on with you there, David, was, I suppose, why the Milpark program, kind of what attracted you to it, and maybe what was surprising to you about kind of being on the program and kind of this online world of education?
I'll be honest with Gareth. I mean, there was not much choices. That's the first thing, Yeah, there's UNISA and all of those kind of things, but it's like when you type in where do I go and what can I do, and that's what I read through the program. And I think the one thing that attracted me was just this connection to SAICA, firstly, all right? An immediate connection to SAICA, that whatever I'm going to do is not going to be a waste of my time, all right? So that's the first thing that attracted my attention. Other than that, I think I just needed to do it. But I think the thing that took me by surprise is just the way the program was structured, the support, the material, the online videos, the option of having an afternoon session to an evening session. What I did for myself, for instance, is I committed to myself that I don't have all the time in that's my constraint. Time is my constraint. So I need to know that that's my constraint. And because of the sessions, that was an afternoon session and an evening session, I committed to join every afternoon session. That was my lunchtime at work. I committed to that time. I blocked out the diary. I got a cup of tea or got whatever it is, and I sat in a little boardroom or in a space where I was free. And for that hour, I was, as much as was limited in terms of content for that hour, that was my study time. That was my time to engage. The sessions was live, which means I could speak to the lecturers. I could get immediate feedback, immediate answers. I could clarify things. That was really, really awesome.
And I think there, David, what you're speaking to is, I think that there's this interesting combination in the program between almost work that you can do in your own time, which that kind of the flexible, we called asynchronous work, which is videos and read through and practice questions. And then that's combined, I guess, with the aspects of live group sessions, live one-on-one sessions. And I think together, they work together to form the program where you hopefully almost get to know the lecturers and the students around you. David, I'm going to come back to you. I want to also ask a couple of questions to Bronwyn, because Bronwyn, I think also a fascinating story from your side. I think also 15 years in between kind of undergraduate and postgraduate, and almost 1 degree different to David, in that you've done both the bridging program and the PGDA. Maybe you can give us a bit of background on you and the aspects of the program and your journey that stood out.
Oh, thanks, Gareth, and hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to share my journey with all of you. So as Gareth said, I hadn't studied for 15 years. I completed my Bachelor of Accounting Science through UNISA in 2007, plus I'd done my 5-year article training contract. So I was used to working and studying at the same time. But to be honest, I don't know, I was too nervous to attempt CTA. And I wasn't passionate about accounting at that time. So I took a break, and a break turned into 15 years. And then in one of my roles, I had a really, I had a good mentor who actually, he made me realize how much I actually enjoyed the subject and the discipline, and I'm actually quite good at it. So I started looking at options, and Milpark came up. I spoke to a few students who'd completed the program, and all I heard was good things. And obviously, you know, the connection with SACA and the excellent ITC pass rates was also quite attractive. And being able to study in your own time and to be flexible, and because I've been working this whole time, yeah, so I made a decision to start, obviously, with the bridging, which was a really good decision, even though it was forced. It really helped me get to grips with principles and understand concepts. So I took the time to do that because I did it over a year, and I also eased myself back into studying. And what really surprised me was that I was enjoying it. So for the first time in my life, I was actually enjoying studying, and I looked forward to it. And I don't know, I love being part of the Milpark family and the community. It was, you know, the support was tremendous, from being able to email lecturers when you were stuck with something and getting prompt responses, and detailed and comprehensive responses. So, you know, the focus was on understanding and not just knowing how to do something. And that really set me up for success in PGDA. Well, I hope. I've just written my final exam. So, yeah, it was... it's probably one of the most profound experiences of my life, completing PGDA. It was a really tough year, but at the same time, it's a year that I'm never going to forget, and it really does change you.
Sure. And I want to hear a bit more about kind of the aspects that have changed in you, Bronwyn, but maybe one step back that I wanted to ask about was, I think what was really interesting kind of hearing about your journey was, you did bridging over 1 year, which we often call our half workload. So our bridging, almost if you want to do it in the shortest time, you do it in 6 months, but you can choose to do that almost on a 20-hour-a-week basis over a full year. And so you did the bridging on the half workload, if I'm remembering correctly, but then you made a different decision when you went into the PGDA. And even though you were working, you did that on the full workload, which usually equates to about 40 hours a week. Tell me a little bit about kind of the choice on the half workload for bridging and then the full workload for the PGDA.
Oh my goodness, that took a lot of deliberation. I spent a lot of time thinking about what I was going to do. You know, I came out of bridging, I was happy with my marks. I mean, my marks were pretty good coming out of bridging. So I had, you know, quite a bit of a confidence boost. So I thought to myself, okay, what do I do? Do I do it over a year and just, you know, give it my all in 9 months of, you know, it's only 9 months. So that's what I kept telling myself. And then I was also realistic with my time. So, you know, I wasn't only putting in the 20 hours a week during bridging. I was sometimes pushing it to 30 hours, 35 hours, just to see if I could do it. And I was able to do it. I also chatted to prior PGDA students who'd also transitioned from the half workload to the full workload for PGDA. And, you know, they said to me it was tough, but it was doable. And I also gave myself an option. I said to myself, if I'm not coping on the full workload, I would switch to the half workload. So I gave myself an out, basically, not an out, but, you know, I gave myself flexibility. And funny enough, you know, test 1 came around and test 2 and test 3, and I'd somehow managed to stay on the train. I don't quite know how I did it. Lots of, you know, I was quite efficient with my time. So I would watch the live sessions. I would watch them on repeat at a fast speed. I wouldn't actually watch them live. So I'd get through those quicker. The online videos, you can watch those on a faster speed as well. So I was doing that. But I was getting through the majority of the work. You know, different subjects, you know, I'd give more attention to, you know, but I'd aim to work through all the lessons and do at least 80% of the questions, which I was doing on a weekly basis. It was difficult. By test 3, I was exhausted, but it's definitely doable. So, yeah.
And I think, I mean, what's interesting about the way we almost talk about these programs, I think a lot of institutions will almost talk about full-time and part-time students. And I think we're quite deliberate, hopefully, in the program to rather talk about workloads. And it's a subtle difference, but it's an important difference in terms of what the full workload says is it doesn't say you have to be a full-time student. It just says you need to be able to dedicate around 40 hours a week to the program. And I think we're very conscious, and what I love about this program is the diversity of people that it attracts. And we're very conscious that different people have different lives, and different circumstances and different abilities to travel and ways of working and different preferences from a personality point of view. So all we say from our side is, how much time can you dedicate to your studies each week? If that is 40 hours, do the full workload, do it in the minimum time. But if it's only 20 hours a week, do the half workload, but try to make an informed and mature decision. And I think some of the most successful students we've seen have actually been ones who've chosen to do the half workload, rather than almost rushing into the full workload. And we don't almost see them as, I don't know, a second tier or a second best option. As I say, some of the strongest students have gone for kind of the half workload. And those are good decisions for them. And we even see students, for example, who are studying full time, who choose to do the half workload because they would prefer to study at 20 hours a week. So the idea of the program is really that to look at kind of your circumstances, your life, what do you need, and then to tailor it to your needs. And that goes for beginning of the year intake, mid-year intake, half workload, full workload, bridging, PGDA, different ways of being supported in kind of live sessions, recorded sessions via email. We've got social media type of environments. We've got a whole bunch of different mechanisms that we don't expect everyone to use all of, but we say they are available, and depending on your preferences and your way of working and the times you work, some people are mothers and they can only work from 10 until midnight. That's their life, and they can tailor the program according to them. And so, I mean, I suppose it's an interesting option, Bronwyn, where I was going with to your answer, that based on those different needs and your preferences, and also by trial and error, I suppose, you're also able to tailor the program to kind of what you needed. Tell me a little bit about you obviously working and studying at the same time. I'm imagining you have other responsibilities in your life. Tell me a bit about the flexibility in the program, and kind of what a day or a week looked like in your world.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I think consistency was a key word for me throughout the year. I try to be as consistent as possible. So majority of the weeks I was putting in the full 40 hours a week. So I would start with lessons on a Monday. I would work through the lessons from a Monday to a Thursday. I would try and take a Friday evening off. It was not always possible. And then on the weekends, I would do practice questions. But what I tried to do as well was I split up my day a bit. So I tried to join the 3 a.m. club, which did not work. I'm not a morning person. So I then decided let's try do an hour in the morning, an hour at lunch, and 3 hours at night. And that was working quite well for me. But obviously with work pressures, there's times when you're going to be really busy at work, and there's times when you're not as busy. So, you've got the flexibility to work accordingly. So, I would change things up. So I wouldn't do the same subjects on each day. I would work according to whatever content was released that week. Sometimes a certain subject would require more hours than another subject. There may be additional complexities, so I'd need to spend more time on something else. So it was flexible. So no week really looked the same. It would change. And, when there were work pressures, then, you'd have to just catch up. That's just part of the journey. Yeah. And also, sorry, just to add to that, I mean, what I found was helpful, and I didn't use this in bridging, but having consultations with lecturers. So instead of spending hours on getting stuck on a concept and trying to work it out on your own, I would book a consult. And the trainee lecturers are brilliant because they've just gone through the program. So they've got they're so good at explaining things so that we actually understand it. So I found that really helpful. So I didn't have time to get stuck for long periods of time. I had to figure it out and move on, and just keep moving.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the academic trainees and assistant lecturers. Basically, I mean, I think what Bronwyn's referring to there is we've got a pretty significant chunk of our staff who are actually students who've literally just completed the PGDA. So they choose to spend almost a year, sometimes a little bit longer, in our space as staff. And I think what's amazing about them is they literally have walked in students' shoes 6 months or a year earlier. Oftentimes students tell us we're old and we don't know what they're going through. We try to think we're young and vibrant, but the academic trainees keep us grounded. And as Bronwyn says, I think they can be real pillars of strength, I think, because they really have empathy kind of for what you're going through. I think, Bronwyn, the other thing that you touched on that's interesting about the program in terms of kind of the support we provide is, yes, the lecturers are available in the different ways that you prefer, but also the way we release and give material to you to work through is it's only released on a weekly basis. We don't release all the material at the beginning of the program, and that's with good or with real intentionality. And because we know volume of material is significant in the program, and it can almost be quite overwhelming if you just release, say, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, a year of material in advance. Because we know there's a pacing to the program, what we do is we release material week by week. So at each point in the program, you know where you need to be to know, are you keeping up? Am I where I need to be? Am I getting the hang of this material? And we found that can be really helpful to students. I think one of the risks with an online or a distance program is you just have this massive amount of material, but in our ability to release it week by week and have live sessions based on that material week by week, and we're able almost to walk the journey with you more to make sure each week, are you on track? Are you where you need to be? Do you need to change something? We reflect a lot, we talk about the process, and I think hopefully that's what makes these kind of bigger journeys able to be managed in a kind of a more bite-sized and piecemeal approach. I want to move on to Yaku shortly, but Bronwyn, the last thing I want to ask you, you've come out, you answer the questions as if things went very smoothly and everything just fell into place. Any highlights and also lowlights of your journey in the program?
Yeah, it wasn't entirely smooth, but one of my highlights was leading up to my exams, I'd managed to pass each of my tests. So for me, that was, that was quite an achievement. And I think small things like being able to finally understand how to interpret the Income Tax Act, being able to say groups are my strong point for financial reporting. It's actually quite incredible how much I've learned this year. And whilst working, I've actually been able to apply what I've learned. So that felt really rewarding. In terms of low points, I think it was this year because I said I'd do the full workload. I didn't have much of a balance in my life, which, it did become challenging at times. I did make adjustments, throughout the year. I think by test 3 was, I was quite tired. So I had to just make some small changes. But yeah, there was nothing really that was so terrible that I look back and regret doing this. It's been a great year, and I think it's going to shape my future here on out.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you, Bron. And I will echo David's applause. I think,
thank you.
Amazing stories, and congratulations also for being done with those PGDA exams. Yaku, I want to come to you, and it's hard to understate the amazing things that you've achieved. Number 1 student in the PGDA, number 1 student in SAICA's ITC. Incredibly proud of what you've achieved. I think one of the highlights, I think also for Milpark this year, is we've become the biggest contributor to SAICA's pipeline of CAs, where we've got the most number of students writing ITC. Firstly, Yaku, I suppose I'm say, fortunately, you've been done with exams for a while, having passed in ITC, so you can also look back at this journey with probably a lot of relief. But firstly, congratulations and well done. How did you do it?
Thanks, Gareth. Thanks a lot. And how did I do it? With a lot of support from you guys, from Milpark, a lot of support from my parents, from my friends, the people around me. I must say my support system is probably the thing that pushed me through. And I think when entering anything difficult in your life as PGDA, PGDA probably was the most difficult year of my life. And I think everybody can agree. Yeah, I see the faces, everybody's nodding. And I didn't work like Bronwyn and David did. I studied full-time. I completed my undergraduate degrees, and then I studied full-time, and I joined Milpark in June, July, also in the mid-year intake. And from there on, the systems was good. As you mentioned, the structure of the program, actually, I think the structure is perfect. I cannot think of anything better. Especially like Bronwyn also said, she structured her day according to the programs. The work was released every Friday. So what I did was, over the weekends, I did the course videos, I did the material, and during the week, I did what you call it, the practice questions, that practice exams, that kind of thing. So I think the structure behind that is good. The consultations is probably the best way that there can be consultations, better than face-to-face, to be honest with you. I did my undergraduate face-to-face at the normal university, not an online. And a lot of times when you try to make an appointment with a lecturer each year, I have to manage schedules, write a few emails, that kind of things. But at Milpark, when you book it, the lecturer is going to be there. That's your time slot. That's the questions. And sometimes I think a lot of times I think I've irritated the lecturers because I've just kept going, and they also just kept going. So I think it's the support, it's the system, it's the process that got me to here where I am today. So from you guys, from my side to you guys, I want to say thank you to you as well.
I mean, it's amazing tenacity, Jaco. I think oftentimes the biggest advice I can give to students is be a pain. I think in that tenacity and in that almost that determination, I think that's where a lot of the hard work lies, and I think that's what pays dividends as you go. Tell me a little bit more about. You speak about you studied at a contact university initially for your undergraduate. What are the differences between studying kind of at a contact university versus studying online, and kind of and the support systems you use? Maybe you can expand on that a bit.
Okay, so my first year was obviously pre-COVID, my second year was pre-COVID, and my third year was 2020, so that was a year we hit COVID. So all of that kind of lecture materials, all of the materials then was distributed to us, I would say, electronically. So I think the kind of the break point was there. So everybody, I think all of the students at that stage had to get used to doing everything online, doing everything, I would say, from your own house, doing all the kind of things on your own. And a lot of times people ask, isn't it difficult to keep the discipline, to keep to your structure, to keep to your routines when doing stuff online? And probably not. To be honest with you, I think probably it's not, because you still, I think it's more difficult to wake up and to go to class every day. You have to wake up, you have to be at class 7:30. At Milpark, you can literally, if you want to, I never did it, but you can watch a class in your bed if you'd like to in the winter morning. So I think the discipline kind of aspect isn't the kind of thing you have to worry about. Yeah, if you put in the work, no matter where you are, I think you'll succeed.
And Jaco, I mean, it sounds like, first in PGDA, first in ITC, it sounds like everything just went perfectly 100% to plan. Did it? Any examples of where it didn't, and kind of the things that you had to do?
First of all, I think PGDA, nothing ever goes to plan as you've planned it. So when I signed up with Milpark, it was actually my second chance at PGDA, my second take at PGDA. So I went in that with not the most confident guy out there, didn't feel like the smartest guy out there. Definitely, PGDA humbles you a lot. It definitely humbles you. Till to this moment, till this day, you're never glad, you're humble, and you're very grateful for everything that happened. So, so going out there, not passing, not being the best, it's definitely the thing that goes to your head. And I think that's another thing that PGDA learns you a lot about yourself. It learns you a lot about the people around you, people's going to support you, and failure is going to happen. Failure is going to happen. It's going to be a thing that's going to be part of your life. It's going to be part of PGDA, definitely. If you pass all of your tests, all of your exams in PGDA, you're probably one of the 0.1% out there, and that is just excellent. That's great, and it's probably not going to happen to a lot of other people. But the thing then is just to stand up, get your head straight, and just keep going forward. Just keep moving on. Just keep trying, and if you have that mindset, just continue to just keep going. I think then you will succeed.
No, it's an amazing lesson for life. I think, Jaco, and it's such a such an insightful comment that you make, is that I guess in life we don't always succeed the first time, and almost one of the biggest lies, I guess, in education we could teach people would be that you work hard and everything works out perfectly. I think the reality doesn't, and the key is how you adapt. What do you do differently? How do you learn? I think all a failure really is you getting information that there's something you need to do differently. Kind of last question for you before I kind of move on to Rafiel, where in that gap between not passing PGDA and then passing PGDA #1 in the program, which interestingly you're not the first person to have done that. What changed?
I think the biggest thing was my mindset. My mindset about, I would say, about failure, about working hard, because you just mentioned it. Working hard doesn't mean you're going to succeed. Doesn't equal that. Equal sign isn't there. But keeping consistently, just keep going, just trying to stay positive, doing the things you have to do on a consistent basis. I think that's the key to the success. Definitely working hard. You're not going to do anything without working hard. But there's a lot of other aspects as well, especially the mindset. The mindset, I think, is the biggest part of it. And I didn't have the challenges that Bronwyn had and David had. I didn't have that kind of challenges, but I think each to its own. And congrats to the other guys that did it while working, while studying, and while having kids, while having a family, that kind of things. And it is possible. It's definitely possible. A lot of people have shown that. And yeah, so I think it is possible to do that.
Yeah, amazing story, Jaco, and congratulations again on your success in PGDA and ITC. I think you're a bright beacon of light to a lot of guys who hopefully going to follow in your footsteps. Rafiel, I want to move on to you. I think besides me and Tracy, the only fully qualified CA here, I can see you looking on with a wise look and a grateful look. Perhaps that you've come through and you're done with these exams. What are you thinking, Rafiel, as you reflect back on your journey and you listen to some of the stories the guys have been sharing?
Jeez, I think most of it gives me a bit of PTSD because I think of what a challenging year PGDA was, because as much as at the end of it it's quite rewarding, I don't think we should sugarcoat it. It's a very tough year, very, very tough. But you learn a lot about yourself, and it teaches you how to build that grit and how to have that resilience and how to just hone in on a lot of what is inside of you, and you just kind of have to bring out your best. And at times, as much as you have a support system, you have to still get on with it and do the work and understand where your gaps are. Go consult with Tracy and Gareth, go back to your lecture notes, go back to your tutorial videos, and you just have to get on with it. Yeah, so that's listening to everyone else. It brought back all those memories. Yeah.
And a mix, I'm sure, as you say, because I think that, I mean, the one common theme, I suppose, that everyone's saying is we can't sugarcoat this thing. I think, yes, there's definitely bright beacons of light and people who've achieved amazing things, but the reality on the ground is it's just genuinely a lot of hard work and grit. And I think for all of us, the objective of a session like this is to be open cards and say the possibilities there, and you guys can do it, but let's go into this thing with our eyes open. Rafiel, you obviously a prominent CA in practice at PPC and also on ORCA, African Women's CAs, which I think is an amazing body that I think we do some work with. I think you're the treasurer there, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm actually just one of the board members. I head up one of the Leadership Academy pillars here.
Amazing. Well, and Rafiel, your motivation for kind of working with these African women CAs? What are the stories you're hearing them say on their journey, and what roles have you played with them?
I think what's very important, particularly for us, is that we want to try and get as many young female CAs out into the work environment as much as possible. So that's also like giving them all the support that they need. So we have a lot of mentorship programs that we do. We also offer bursaries for those who are not able to have the financial assistance, and also to just show them that CAs do exist. So sometimes if something is not tangible and you can see that it's quite attainable, and it becomes more relatable. So to have people that they can maybe have in your WhatsApp chat list, chat to them from time to time if there's something that you're struggling with. And if I can't help you with something, there's surely somebody in my space or in my network that I can reach out to who'd be able to help you with a certain standard costing question that you might have, or a process costing question that you might have. So just to know that you're not in it alone, and we will walk the journey with you from when you do your PGDA all through your articles until you qualify as a chartered accountant.
Amazing work that you guys are doing, and yeah, just really grateful for what you're doing. Guys, maybe I can open it up to the floor. I think some of the aspects that we haven't yet touched on, and depending on who's kind of experienced this in the program, I'm going to open the floor up and let you comment. I mean, one of the huge advantages, I think, with the with all the kind of Milpark CECNIC programs is that you can study from anywhere. And whether that means being online, whether that's moving around the country, whether that's moving around the world, I'm not too sure to what extent you guys have taken advantage of the ability to be mobile while studying. Any stories in around kind of mobility and being able to kind of not be locked into a particular spape?
Yeah, I'd like to go, and I'd like to add something here. I think the program offers, Jaco touched on something which I thought was really key. I think sometimes we have a wrong perception or conception of the word discipline, you know, and I think the discipline is actually you yourself, and how the framework is there, everything is given to you, it's how you use and apply that framework. And I think what Milpark has done successfully is actually create a framework that allows you to be disciplined within that framework and taking into consideration your own personal journey. And I think that's the part that I wanted to add. And I'm actually just got goosebumps listening to everybody's story, all right, because everybody's got their own journey, all right, and everybody's journey is not the same. Well done, Jaco, for being first. I will never be first. All right, but that's your journey. All right, I've got a whole different journey, and the one thing, and I think this is the part that I really benefited from the program at Milpark, was the student advisors and the drop-in sessions. That support through that sessions is really what kept me going, understanding that everybody's got their own journey, everybody's challenged, but the support and the inspiration and the encouragement from students from across the world, across the country, sitting in different places, sharing their own journey and inspiring you and giving you just the little thing that you missed, the thing that you just didn't see at the time that you were supposed to see it, the comment or the practice question or the exam technique, all of those elements. I think that was an invaluable time. Those are one of the things also I didn't miss. A drop-in session on a Friday at 12 o'clock, I was there, all right? But I think the important thing for me was also not only me taking from other people, but also what can I contribute, all right? What can I share? How can I help people, you know, in my little way, all right? I'm not by far the best, but the fact that I have my own experience, I can contribute, say, this is what helped me and maybe it could help you. And one of the things that I think was a huge highlight for me through the session is the clarity of the purpose and understanding, why am I doing this? And I think that together with the framework, it really has allowed me to do a whole lot of things. I mean, in my first 2 weeks, I think it was, I was able to take the knowledge and bring it into practice and save our company probably 2-3 million rand a year. Right, that's the impact for me. It's not the fact the tests and exams is great. fine. That's the result is great, but it's making it applicable in my work environment. And I think I could have only done that if it was because of the way the lectures were presented, because of the discussions, because of the engagement, because of the interaction, because of how the knowledge came across. So yeah, it was really
amazing, David, because I think what you're speaking to there is authentic learning, which is not something separate from the world. Authentic learning is about making you able to add more value in your world and the world around you, and kind of lift up the value that each of us can contribute. I think the other amazing thing that you touched on there was almost we call them student support and development advisors. And for you guys who don't know the term, it's basically a group of educational psychologists, counselors, who integrated into our department. So they're not just kind of some people who sit in some tower somewhere. They actively work with us as CAs in the department. I think one of the things we recognized really early on in the design of the program is that almost the CA stuff in becoming a CA is a core aspect of the learning, but it's not everything. Some of the real hard stuff is the mental battle from day to day, the discipline, the scheduling, the fitting this into our lives. And there's a lot more to studying than just learning the debits and credits. And what David's referring to with these student support and development advisors are these non-CAs who are integrally part of the program. They run drop-in sessions, I think Friday afternoon. I think it also runs Wednesday evening. What's amazing about the sessions is that they're not there to talk about CA stuff. And what we found is a lot of times, if you can get the life stuff right, the CA stuff can take care of itself. The drop-in sessions are an opportunity to talk about your life, how you facing certain things, what you're struggling with, what's working, what's not working. And I think the other amazing point that you make there, David, is it's not just about the lecturers. It's not just about me having all the answers and telling you what to do. It's about creating communities where students can share. We also spoke kind of what Bronwyn said about our academic trainees, the guys who are lecturers kind of 6 months or a year ahead of you guys. They also integral in creating these communities. I think it's not very helpful just to have someone on the stage saying, this is how you do it, listen to me or else. That's not the type of education we're involved with. We're with you. We want to understand your story and understand how you learn best. And that means can't just be CAs. We need a whole bunch of other things. We need different people with different life experiences. We need to create communities where you can interact with other students. I think always the thing that I really hope for in the program is that you don't feel alone. You don't want to feel like it's just you and your computer. You want to feel like you're actively part of a community. One thing that I always get into trouble about saying is I think one of my biggest indicators for success in the program is if 2 students coming into the program who didn't know each other before end up getting married after the program. And I make a bit of a joke about it, but that's what should happen. Not necessarily for every student, but in actively involved and engaged communities. People get to know each other, they develop relationships, even if they don't get married, they become genuine friends and people who are there to support each other in a way that they genuinely have relationships. And even after the program, they are still in touch. Tracy, you've been very quiet so far. I think some of the questions that guys often have, and guys, if you didn't remember from my introduction at the beginning, Tracy is the head of the postgraduate department. Maybe you can talk a little bit, Trace, just about the test writing process. From a test perspective, it's not one size fits all, and maybe you can tell us a bit about how those work.
Yeah, sure. There are lots of people asking in the questions about how we write assessments. I think that's a good one for us to touch on. So we ultimately are preparing students to write the initial test of competence, ITC, which is Zyka's current first board exam, and that is a venue-based handwritten assessment. And so we want to prepare students for that, and we're preparing students on that journey of, what Bronwyn has to look forward to in January of 2 days of writing ITC. And so we do have venue-based handwritten assessments. So for our students who have registered with us, we have roughly 24 venues around the country, and some even internationally in countries like Namibia or Zimbabwe, where you can write at a venue invigilated, very much emulating the conditions of ITC. However, we're also an online institution, and this program is built to be flexible. It's built to adapt to the needs of students. And so there is then also the option to write online. And in that case, students would emulate the conditions of writing in a venue at home for themselves. So they would have, proctoring software, recording them as they wrote, still writing by hand. And so, that's not different. You have to get those strong arm and hand muscles going, writing CGA for 4 hours or something. But, at a venue that is suitable, where it's quiet and you can be alone for an extended period of time with a good internet connection. So we allow students to choose. We ask them to choose at the beginning of the program, but we encourage them to revisit that decision throughout the program. So if you decide you want to write online and you try it out, and then you decide, no, maybe I want to try a venue, you can do that and switch so that you can see which one works for you. Some students know from the get-go, there's a venue near me, I want to be there, and they stick there the whole way. But it's good to know that there's online, your car breaks down, or for whatever reason you can't make it to a venue. We've got some flexibility and some leeway in place. So that's how we write assessments, and that would be all formatives as well as the final exams throughout both the bridging and the PGDA program.
And it does seem a bit archaic, okay, Tracy, that we're still writing by hand. We chatting to Saika quite a lot, because it does seem like these exams need to be written kind of on a computer in the near future. And I know Saika is taking steps in the next, hopefully, 5 years, that ITC and the board exams will be written on computers. And certainly as soon as we get there, I think we'll kind of follow closely on. But for now, as Tracy says, those hand muscles are important. So we do those written, whether you write at venues or online. And as Tracy said, you've got that option, and then the option to switch. Tracy, another thing I was going to ask you about, lots of students thinking, geez, man, I'm going to start this program in, say, February next year. As we said, the applications are open on the website, and they can get that process going if they haven't already. But then we've got this awkward wait between, geez, what are we on, the 14th of November, up until the program starting in February. Any advice to what students can do in this interim period?
I think there are a number of things that students could do, whether it's the bridging program or the PGDA that you're going to be starting next year, to get yourself well set up to be ready for it. Firstly, I would recommend getting your registration, admission, and all of that sorted as early as possible. I'm sure that our students will tell you it's very hard to get with the flow if you join the program late. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer, if I'm honest with you, than you think it might. It's not a 2-day turnaround to go from application to registered. And so I would encourage you, as soon as you've got your results and you're good to go, get that process started. As Gareth said, applications are open and you can start getting ready. But beyond that, I think you can get your life ready and yourself ready. I think David, Jaco, and Ronan have all spoken about the time requirements and how PGDA, we can provide you with a whole bunch of support options. We've designed the material to really be supportive and explanatory, but we cannot take the hard out of PGDA or out of bridging. It is going to be demanding. It's going to require you to apply yourself. And so you can start to create space in your life for that, whether you are working and studying or whether you are a full-time student. And that might mean having some conversations with those closest to you, your partner, your spouse, your family, your parents, your children, and certainly your boss if you are in an employment situation, so that they understand, what the year looks like. We at this point, we can show you what the plan for the year looks like. You will know exactly when you've got tests and exams. You can see when there's study break. You can start thinking about leave, and start getting yourself ready to make the space for the 20 or the 40 hours that you're going to need each week. I think sometimes students think when we do the orientation sessions or we give information like this before the program and we say, oh, it's going to be 40 hours a week, they think that we're trying to scare them and we're lying. But I think all of the students here can attest that that's really not a lie. Like, that's being genuine and straight up with you, that's almost the minimum that you need if you're going to be doing the full workload. It's hard, but it is doable. Many students do it every single year with children and jobs and other commitments. So It's not impossible, but it is going to come at a cost. And so it's worth thinking about how you're going to fit that into your life, and just preparing yourself and those around you for the journey that you're going to be on. As Bronwyn said, like, see it as 9 months that you're going to dig deep to reach the goal that you want to get to, and understand why you're doing it. I'd encourage you to rest. Like, I think, you know, taking December to be with your family, to have some downtime, to do what brings you joy, whether that's sport or family time or movies or reading or sleeping, whatever it is, come into the PGDA, come into the bridging program feeling strong, feeling rested, feeling ready, because you're going to need those resources. I think that sets you up better than, I don't know, going through your undergrad notes or something. If it's been a while since you studied, like for David or for Bronwyn, don't feel like you need to go and teach yourself again. The material will take you from where you are to where you need to be. You just need to have the capacity to engage with it and to do the hard that is required in the program. And so you can prepare yourself that way. Anything else you'd add to that, G?
No, that's awesome. That's great advice, Trace. I'm gonna start winding down. I want to give everyone the last opportunities for some final words of wisdom. What I will say before we get to that, I know Henley our producers told me there've been a few issues with the Q&A section of the chat. So guys, if you have been listening attentively and you've got a burning question that we haven't managed to get to, please pop it on the accounting@milpark.ac.za email address. I know also that the team will work back through your questions after the session, and we'll try to get to those there. But I suppose inherently in a session like this, you can't get to everything. But please know that if you do have those questions, we just an email away. Of course, all the detailed information, entrance requirements, requirements for half workload, full workload, caconnect.co.za, all the information is there if you want to work through any of the particular things you've heard about here, from, as I say, workloads to the intakes beginning mid-year, beginning of the year, mid-year intake, writing tests online or at venues. All that stuff is there on the website. Panel, you guys have been amazing. Any last words of wisdom that we haven't touched on in the session as yet?
I'm going to jump in there. Sorry, I know you're asking everyone else, but the question that keeps coming through in the chat that I'd like to just quickly touch on is just about half workload versus full workload. There is information on our website about how that works and how to decide. And I'd encourage you also to send us an email if you'd want some advice. You are the expert in your own life, and so we can't make the decision for you. We can merely advise you. But like Bronwyn made the decision to move from half workload bridging to full workload PGDA, but she had kind of tasted it in her life and made an educated decision there. If you're on full workload, you can always move to half workload. And so that if you're on the fence, maybe you want to start with full workload and try it and then move to half once you've got a sense. But please reach out to us if that is a question you have.
Yeah, and just a final add-on to that, a kind of guideline to that is generally the half workload. I mean, it's not an exact science, but the half workload, you're looking at clearing around 20 hours a week of study time. That should be pretty much all in, and those are flexible hours. So if you want to study between midnight and 3 in the morning, or if you want to study between 2 and 5 in the afternoon, you can find those hours where you want to, and then the equivalent for the full workload would be but it's 40 hours a week. Again, 40 flexible hours, so it's not full-time, part-time, it's half workload, full workload. So it's, as Tracy said, it's about you're the expert in your life and finding kind of what works for you with your responsibilities, your personality preferences, your circumstances, your various needs, and just really examining your life from that perspective. Guys, it looks like we have hit 6:30. So all that really then remains for me is to sincerely thank the panel. Bronwyn, David, Rafilwe, and Yaku, thank you so much for joining, sharing your insight. Congratulations on the journey you guys have taken, some amazing stories. And I think I've seen a few of the comments coming through in the chat, just sincere gratitude for the wisdom you guys have shared. Huge appreciation. Thank you for joining us this evening. And to everyone who's joined, as I said, the session is recorded. It will be available after the session. If you haven't had your question answered, accounting@milpark.ac.za is where you can find us. We try our best to get back to you within 1 working day. If for some reason you don't get an email, please just pop us another email and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Tracy, thank you for joining me on the session. And I'm very grateful none of my kids have run in during the session, so we were able to be real, but we've also seemed to have a relatively smoothly running session. So thank you, and good evening.
Thank you, everybody. Go well.